Here we come. Happy New Year, everybody. We're live. If people would just put a little shout out if you're hearing and seeing me okay, that would be really helpful. It's great to be here, and it's 11 o'clock in the morning here in California. And thanks to our very boring New Year's Eve celebration, which was watching TV last night, I feel full of energy and ready to go. So great to see you. Can I get a little confirmation that you guys are hearing or seeing me? Okay, and I'm coming through. Good on sound? Yes? Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, welcome. A lot of you are new to the channel. It's great to have you here. Um, I have stuck in here a link. We're in the middle of our big sale right now, and I'm going to be putting up a link periodically. There's no coupon code today. It's 30% off membership. And this would be a very good time to join. It's the new year. So I'm putting that there. It's turning out to be super popular. I've been really busy just kind of like welcoming the new members, getting them into the secret Facebook group, helping everybody get started. So perhaps by the end of this call, some of you guys will be members too. So very nice to see you. Let's see. This is what I do here. Rob is going to be moderating today. Harry is taking the morning off because Harry's a young person and he gets on New Year's Day, he gets to sleep in. And Rob's going to be giving me questions from you, probably starting with the earlier ones. We're looking for questions that are good for me to answer, not too long, not too triggering for other people, if we can help it. So we do our best. It's a live show, right? So, all kinds of things can happen. I was reading a few chats here. It seems like a lot of people, I was reading what some people were writing, and I saw there's a lot of isolation going on, and that's definitely like you are so much at the right place. This is where we heal that. Isolation has everything to do with complex PTSD. So if you're really new to the subject matter, I just wanted to tell you, complex PTSD is the kind of PTSD that comes from chronic exposure to intense stress. Most Cptsd cases that we know about come from childhood, from people who were abused and neglected. But you could have it from being in an abusive relationship, living in a war zone, anything that went on and on. The thing about PTSD that happens when you're a kid is it can change your brain development. And so I think the great relief of so many people here, including me, because every time you guys write a comment about what it's like to have Cptsd, I just keep hearing this, like, this is the first time anybody's described what it's like. And I'm just describing what it's like to be me. And that's the beauty of this group, is we are finding out like it's not just us. And I don't know about you, but I did not know this. I was trying to figure out what was wrong for years. And then I got some answers. And complex PTSD. If you're in the United States, it's still not even in the DSM manual as a thing. So we don't worry too much about it. It's they're common symptoms. It's common symptoms, and that's what I make videos about, like difficulties in relationship, finding and staying with appropriate people, not getting into limerent relationships. Oh my gosh, we've been talking about limerence for the past 6 weeks, and it's like a huge topic for us. We often tend to isolate. We get dysregulated, and dysregulation is such an important concept that I had never heard about, but brain dysregulation, not just emotional dysregulation, like that was a thing for a while, but brain dysregulation. Hey, Rob, would you mind making it muting yourself until you talk, just so I don't hear? Thanks. Okay. Brain dysregulation feels like discombobulation. Sometimes you walk into the room, you can't remember why. You're in the middle of talking, you can't remember what you were saying. Maybe your heart rate starts going for no reason. Or emotional flashbacks. A lot of us relate to that too. And thanks to Pete Walker for defining what that is. An emotional flashback is, it's like a set of intense emotions that just sort of come and visit us sometimes, and we don't even know what hit us. It's not associated with a memory or anything conscious. For a lot of us, it's probably like a brain chemistry or blood chemistry thing. Because when I have an emotional flashback, it's usually, well, it could happen if somebody's like screaming in my face, but that's understandable, right? That's like a frightening event on every level. But I wake up sometimes in an emotional flashback. So that's a thing. People are talking about limerence. Yes, yes, yes. So welcome especially to the people here who are medical professionals and mental health professionals. We are so glad you're here. We are trying to build a common understanding of this that just wasn't there before. And luckily, I don't know, I think about 10% of my students, and there are, oh gosh, I don't know, what do we have here? We have 209,000 subscribers, a big mail list. There are, I think, 60,000 people taking my courses right now. And I think about 10% of them are clinicians or clinical workers, people in public health, healthcare, and mental health. And I'm just so grateful. We are changing the world, you guys. We are the pioneers. So I'm going to start taking questions. And Rob, if you would you just go ahead and put the membership discount link down there in the chat? And we'll put that periodically because it rolls up so fast. But again, I just wanted to encourage anybody, if you've been thinking of becoming a member, this is a membership is you get access to all 5 of my courses. One of them is free. Anybody can take that, the daily practice, and that's the most important one. So if you're broke today, please come take the daily practice. These are the techniques that help me to get on top of my Cptsd symptoms so long ago. And I've been teaching it and teaching it and teaching it for years. And we have this incredible community. I do free calls on Zoom every 2 weeks. If you take the course, you'll be invited. People in any of my courses are invited to those. So that is, that's there. I know people are here from all over the world, and I hope you'll tell us where you're from in the chat window, because I always kind of enjoy knowing that. But when we did the daily practice call, we have one coming up this week. A couple weeks ago when we did it, we had 200 people, and they were from literally all over the world. They were from almost every continent. So we hope you can join us for that. Membership, then I sell individual courses: Healing Childhood PTSD, Dating and Relationships, Dysregulation Bootcamp, Connection Bootcamp, and you get all of them for one price. It's a lot cheaper than if you bought them individually, and you get to come to group coaching calls every 2 weeks with me, where I take questions on Zoom. That's one of my favorite. Being on those Zoom calls with people on the daily practice and group coaching is my favorite thing to do. So a lot of people say, "Can I talk to you?" And right now, no, I'm so booked out. You can't get a coaching appointment with me, but you can come and be a member and get on the group coaching calls. And the group coaching community is amazing, because then we have a Facebook group, a secret Facebook group, and it is like turning into this flowering, blossoming community. And people are so kind and helpful, and there's free daily practice calls led by peers in that group. So anyway, I just want to put in a plug for that. That's what membership is. Normally it's $500 for a year, US dollars. It's $347 right now and tomorrow. And it's this one link. Sometimes you may come to my calls and see a coupon code. No coupon code, it's just this one link. And on the page that link takes you to, you can go see, I don't know, 25 testimonials from people, from students of mine, and I invite you to go check it out. I am brought to tears when I read these, and I'm very proud that that's the experience that people are having in this group. It's really powerful. You know what else I would like to put a link for, Rob, is for G11. If you could get a hold of that from Thinkific, we just filled up our group coaching intensive with Kara. We opened a second one that's going to be on Sundays starting January 15th. So we'll get a link to that in case you're interested. Okay, so I'm going to be taking questions, and here we go. Seasonal Vibes says, I've seen you before here, I think. I was dumped by my friends after I had a traumatic accident and was in a 2 years recovery period. Now I'm well again, and they want to reconnect. Is it healthy to forgive and reconcile? Oh, what a good question. Isn't it weird how when something bad happens, you sure find out who your friends are? And so I'm guessing that when you say you were dumped by friends, is they just sort of faded out. Like they didn't judge you necessarily, but they just didn't show up and help you, right? A traumatic accident, you probably needed like food and help getting up and down and driving to appointments and things. And boy, have I been in that situation before. And I never want to be in that situation again. But if it hadn't happened, if I hadn't been sort of left alone with a lot of stuff I was going through with less help than I needed, there's a bad side and a good side. Here's the bad side. I had a lot of surgeries. I ended up having 14 surgeries, major ones. And I probably wouldn't have needed all those if I had had help. I think a lot of why My surgeries kept falling apart and I was just kept having complications is because I didn't have love and I didn't have rest. And but having had that experience, I don't think I'd be here today trying to talk all the time on YouTube saying, you guys, it's so important that you develop these relationships. And I talked about it actually in the video that I put out yesterday called Covert Avoidance. And that's what I sort of credit with why didn't I have help at that time is because I didn't know I was doing it at the time. I can tell you now. I was not opening my heart and having close relationships with people. I don't want to put myself down in any way or you or assume that you're like me. But there was a reason why I didn't have that kind of relationship. Well, one was, my mom had died from alcoholism. My siblings, one was far away, one's not speaking to me for almost 15 years now. Just like typical crappy childhood family, right? And I was divorced. But where were my girlfriends? And I think that what had happened is I had these shallow relationships with them and they weren't there. And I was mad at them. And I can tell you now, it's many years later, I got done with all that in 2008. Just pouring a cup of tea here. In 2008, I got done, and a couple of those people are my friends, but in a weird way, like once you know that people aren't there for you, you kind of know. All right, but a couple of people did show up for me. One of them was my meditation teacher, Paul Brown. And I've been talking about him lately. He just had a birthday. He's an amazing person. And he taught me to meditate back in 1994, in November 1994, when I first learned the daily practice. And he's remained my friend all this time. And he was the person when I was in the hospital trying to figure out, like I said in the video, I had to call 10 people. He's the one who said yes. He's the one who came in and picked me up and took me home and hung out with me. And so I always tell this sad story. Nobody was there, but hold on, somebody was there. The people who weren't there, like I needed to learn. I was crap fitting with those friends, and maybe you are too, right? So you think you have friends, but really, like, what kind of friends? And then, those of us who weren't nurtured properly as kids, like, what do we know about how to tell whether a friendship is one you can count on? We don't know. We're not very good at that. But when you have this experience, you had a traumatic accident and your friends bailed on you. It's like, okay, there you go. Those are the crap fit friends, or they're rainy day friends. They're great for some little outing or something, but they're not that friend, capital F, those people who are there for you when you're in trouble. So another thing for me was why I didn't have those friends was I was really busy. And it's funny because I just talked about this in the video yesterday and I just taped it yesterday morning too. But I was really busy all the time. And I was busy. I, was self-employed. I was working full time, trying to support my kids. I was divorced. And it is a lot. But in a big way, I just hadn't really been present to my friends. I'd like to have them for entertainment, but I wasn't there. And again, I'm not saying you did that. But a lot of why I ended up with crap fit friends. Do you guys all know what I mean by crap fit? Crap fit is the word I use when you fit yourself to crap. It's this thing we do with childhood PTSD. We get so used to unacceptable people and unacceptable situations that we just naturally fit ourselves to it. So, a person can date us and be completely cold and indifferent and not call us for a week. And all we'll think is, well, what did I do wrong? Because we're crap fitting. We're not like, well, this is no good. I don't want to go out with somebody who treats me like this or wants to leave me worrying. So, that's why we're here. We're healing our childhood trauma so that we can start to discover standards of worth for ourselves. And you deserve that as a friend. But what happens with alienation is sometimes some of us, me, I wasn't giving it and I wasn't getting it. I will say there were a couple other people. Like, here was a sad thing. I should probably do a video about this, but it's just so sad. But when I was in the hospital, they make you do a durable power of attorney for somebody to decide whether to take you off life support or something and know your wishes. And I didn't have anybody to be that person. And finally, I did have somebody. I thought about it, and a friend did step up and do that for me and took it really seriously. And so that's another thing I've had to heal from is sort of the sad story of, oh, I don't have anybody, and start to discover, well, wait a second. I used my tools. I did reach out. I found people. And I know that not everybody ends up with somebody to do those things. But a lot of that's what trauma does to us. If you've been in that situation and you didn't have a ride or you didn't have somebody to help you, P.S. I'm somebody, when I was in labor with my first kid, I drove myself to the emergency room. Okay. That's weird, right? That's weird. And funnily enough, the complications from the birth that happened in the emergency room was why I was late in later years in the hospital with all these difficult surgeries. So, yeah, there's a price to be paid sometimes for not being able to connect with people, but that's why you're here. That's why you're here. So with your friends, if you want friends to just hang out with and whatever you used to do, have tea, go to the movies, whatever I don't know you, so I don't know what appeals to you to do. Different people do different things together. It's good to have lighthearted social friends for that. And you know what? When we're in need, not everybody has to step up, and putting that demand on everybody isn't realistic. But some people have to. And it's weird. Like, there was this one neighbor who came in and she helped me so much, and I didn't even know her and I never saw her again. So one of the things when I do the daily practice, these techniques of writing and meditating that I do, I'm constantly talking about. I'm like, if you want to calm your triggers, I've got a technique for you, and it's free and it's easy. That's the free course. Rob, maybe you could put the link to the daily practice down there if you didn't already. Just do it. Oh, good. And Rob just put the coaching intensive link there coming up. That's our deepest program here. It's fantastic. We filled one group up just like that. So we're adding another. But so talking about people being there for us, my heart opened because it turned out that in this life I have been provided for. As much as I got kind of ripped off, wonderful things have happened, and it's helped me a lot. I'm not one of those people just focus on the gratitude and forget everything else. I'm not like that. I'm not talking about any kind of magic woo-woo here, but it's just good to know. And I feel like I want to tell the world, it's like people stepped up for me. I'm still here. I'm still alive. And I was cared for enough. But the part where I wasn't getting cared for prompted me to have to heal more. And that's why I got deeper into the daily practice. That's why I learned, what is wrong with me? What is this thing? And I read and I found out about Cptsd, which was totally emerging in 2014. That, nobody knew. And that's why I'm here. So, it's good to be open to having to use your experience to make the best life you can with. And for all of us here, that story, that history is going to be that we were traumatized at one point. And as people who are traumatized, we have a unique level of compassion and understanding for the other people who will be traumatized, which is never going to stop happening. They're always going to be here. And one day you're going to be, the elder helping them to adapt to life and learn the life skills. I mean, somebody had to teach me how to use silverware. No kidding. So, all right. Thank you for that question. And I'm going to pop over to another question here. All right. Summer KSS says, when it comes to dealing with Cptsd triggers, is it better to avoid them altogether or try to get desensitized to the PTSD triggers via gradual exposure? Oh, what a great question. All right. My immediate answer is neither. I don't think either of those are good. I'll tell you why. All right. So avoiding triggers altogether means you become a hermit and you stop all connection with people. and if you're not connecting with people, do you know what happens? Your life gets empty and your development gets delayed. And a lot of us are already dealing with what I would call a developmental delay. If we weren't learning how to connect with people, how to be real with people, how to read their emotions, how to express our emotions, how to have a conflict gracefully, if we didn't learn all of that, we're stuck at some earlier phase than we should be. And that's a lot what healing childhood PTSD, and certainly the people in my community and my courses, that's what they're doing, is they're going through an accelerated process of learning how you do life. How do you do this? But what's crucial is learning to stay regulated. And if you don't know about staying regulated or what regulation is, and you're not in touch with when you're dysregulated, it would be easy to think that the problem is that other things are triggering. I mean, we are so trained to point our fingers outward about how we get triggered, right? But actually, if you don't have a whole trauma inside about something, it needs to be an unhealed trauma for you to get all dysregulated about things that happen outside of you. And I'll tell you right now, you're going to see people be angry, unfair. You're going to see car accidents and things that are frightening, things are going to be triggering out there. And rather than spend all your energy trying to get people to stop triggering you, because nobody likes that person, you can learn to notice your triggers and bring them down. And that's what my programs teach you, how to bring them down. Then phase 2 is, how do you express yourself when you need to say, hey, could you not yell in my face? Or, hey, that was not fair what just happened. It is important to express ourselves. So we don't ignore that it happened. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself or for another person. And, who's going to go out there and fight the good fight of moving justice forward and things like that? But also, like in something like, just even the word justice is loaded now because people disagree. And so many people get so triggered that they resort to either like shutting down and getting silent, or viciously verbally attacking people who disagree with them. Well, that's no good. If you have a disagreement with somebody, there's a middle way, and it's the only one that's effective. And it's to stand up and say what you think and to remain in a connected dialogue with somebody. And as we all know, culturally, there's just kind of this meltdown around that these days, these years. It's really bad. But I think that's kind of a collective PTSD going around, and then like a collective, like nobody's learning how to have the nuanced conversation. But you can have that good conversation and express yourself. And I often use like one example I've talked about in courses is, let's say you're triggered by people getting drunk around you. All right, I'm triggered by people getting drunk around me. And so I have some choices. I can avoid people who are drinking. I can yell at people who are drinking. I can try to make rules for people who might drink in my presence. Or I can learn to calm my triggers around drinking and have a choice of any of the above, right? But I don't have to avoid life. I can just be like, oh, you guys going to be drinking? I think I'm going to sit this one out. And it's funny because I've been so clear about how I feel about that for so long. It's not just like any drinking. Any drinking doesn't bother me, but people getting drunk, right, is a little bit, it's just old stuff. I don't like how it makes me. I get tense inside. Gone to Al-Anon for decades, about it. Like I've dealt with it, but I just know like I'm not going to feel totally free and comfortable with people who are like fall down drunk around me. And they do not have to change their behavior for me. They can change their behavior for them. They can deal with whatever life has for them, but I'm not going to go around trying to tell them what they can and can't do around me. I'm just going to know what I want to do. And so having boundaries means I just can decide whether I want to go into situations where I can predict that that's going to happen. And if I find myself in a situation that's triggering for me, I have choices about how I want to deal with that. I bet a lot of you went through this with the holidays. Maybe you went home or you went and dealt with people, not just the drinking, but just people who are triggering for you in general. And for some of you, it probably was drinking. But for other people with Cptsd, it's like you got to drink to deal with it, right? So, we all deal with it the way we can, but the optimum way, I think, is just to learn when you go, okay, here it goes. I'm feeling my heart race. I can't feel my hands right now. Like that's, for me, getting dysregulated and triggered has really distinctive symptoms. And that's what it's like. I can't, I start to go numb. I get clumsy. I start dropping things. I'll spill drinks, like, a cup of tea. It's funny. Yesterday, I spilled a glass of water on my desk, and I spilled this in the living room. So I get dysregulated, and I'll just spill things. And so there's signs, and I just know, like I'm so tuned in now. Like, oh, I'm getting dysregulated. When I'm dysregulated, I I have a few rules to follow. It's like, don't drive, don't say anything heavy to people, maybe take a break and sit down and re-regulate myself, which I know how to do and I teach people to do. So you had asked, avoid them or get desensitized through gradual exposure. I think some people have found help through the exposure therapy, but I don't think that's like it doesn't have major clinical success. It's not the only game in town. If there's something, I think some people, like if they hear screeching brakes or something or loud noises, those are the type of people who often get recommended to go to exposure therapy. And I don't know, maybe, but I have found, because I came into the daily practice after being assaulted on the street, and I had gotten really hurt on the left side of my head. And for a couple of years, anything moving over in my left field of vision would like give me a panic attack. So that's the kind of thing that was like an adult onset PTSD thing. I got the daily practice and I just, all of that just kind of calmed down. I sometimes s- I'm not I'm not the expert on every kind of trauma or injury, but sometimes all you need is just a little movement, a little progress. And if you can learn to sort of calm your triggers and get your nervous system to just come down a little bit, you have a lot more maneuverability to improve things. So I would just say if you found something that works, do that. And if you're interested in trying to learn to calm your triggers in the way that I'm teaching, please come learn it. It's just so great to have. All you need is this and this. And that's like a nice new piece of paper. I get boxes of paper for the family for Christmas. People who write in my family and for myself so that we can write and write and write and write. We write our fears and resentments so that we can sort of just express it and stop thinking about it. Then there's a little process of releasing it or asking for it to be removed. And then a restful meditation. Now, don't just try this based on what I'm saying. I made a course, it's only 40 minutes long. You can learn it and try it in less than an hour. But just see if it doesn't just help you to sort of bring it back when you're to a calmer state. I'm going to be looking at some other things, some technologies and things that help. As I understand it, what's happening is we're bringing our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system kind of back into balance. One side is one is the one that makes you go, the sympathetic nervous system is the one that makes you go all fight or flight. Parasympathetic brings you back down again and you calm down or you fall asleep. And you want those in balance because with Cptsd, you're sort of vacillating between, and then total exhaustion and drained of energy. So you want those in balance. And this is a free technique that I find really helps. So there's that. Whoops. Just banged everything. There we go. Thank you for that question. It's a good question. And next one. Okay, Isabella says, is it possible for someone with severe Cptsd to have narcissistic characteristics? Yes, I just did a video about this. Honestly, I think it's easy to mistake us for pure narcissists sometimes, especially when we're unhealed. So the video is called Narcissistic Traits in Cptsd. And yeah, you'll find it. When did I make that? I don't know, sometime in the last 2 months, 3 months, I think. I just did a blog post about it as well. You can find it on my blog at crappychildhoodfairy.com. And I listed like 11 things. We get very self-centered. We have trouble feeling empathy for other people. We, gosh, there's 11 things, and I just come down and think about them. We can lash out and be insensitive to the effects of our words on other people. I think when you've been neglected through your whole childhood, like somebody's got to be very focused on you. And so for a certain period of time, it's going to have to be you. And people might find that unpleasant. And it's part of why we don't do very well with people when we have unhealed PTSD. So it's something to be aware of and work on, but also to forgive yourself for being that way. And it just having characteristics doesn't mean you have a personality disorder. It just means you have a social, emotional, and neurological injury from getting neglected or abused. So we go easy on ourselves. All right. Let's see. Next question. DJ66 says, how do you learn to trust your your own judgment in relationships? I tend to trust and later find the person doesn't fit my needs at all. Yeah, you and a lot of us, huh? So if you want to learn to trust your judgment, I have a dating course that's basically about that talks about all the ways that we get in over our heads too fast in relationships, too much intimacy, too much attachment and bonding before we know somebody. And basically, if you sleep with somebody before you know really if they're compatible, reliable, safe, caring, and all that, and you have an attachment wound, it's a recipe to just get completely messed up inside about it, to get triggered at the deepest level, to go into attachment melange, which is intense grief, anxiety, and rage all at once. Have you ever felt like When you get rejected, you feel like you got kicked out of the world, like everybody else is in the world. That's how I used to feel. Sorry, hold on. I got scratchy voice. I don't have COVID, I swear. I think. Would we know anymore? I feel good, but I've been doing a lot of talking. I talk for a living here. But if you don't want to get stuck in a relationship with somebody you don't know, this very few people want to hear this, but you have to postpone sex. That's my number one piece of advice. And a lot of people will push back and say, well, nobody would ever go out with me if I did that. And I said, then you're dating the wrong people. If what you want is a good relationship, you're going to need techniques to just pass on by the people who don't care about you and wouldn't even want to have dinner with you unless you're going to sleep with them. You don't want to date those people. Those aren't the ones. So my dating course goes over this in detail. I've been talking about this a lot in the limerence videos, and the ones that came before that. There's a video I made about casual sex, a lot of videos about unavailable people, magical thinking. There's all these tricks our PTSD plays on us when we're dating because the need for love is so great and the skill at crap fitting is so powerful that we can look at somebody who doesn't care about us, is barely available, has already caused us to feel bad about ourselves. We all of a sudden get like hearts and stars in our eyes over it because that's what we grew up with. And I'm not that interested, though, in what caused me to be that way. I know what caused me to be that way. I'm interested in how do I change it. And so when I changed it, I undertook a really serious process. And it was a process like I couldn't get help from therapists. They were so permissive, they were just like, I don't know. How do you feel about it? It's like, who cares how I feel about it? I just need to change. And I sought help from some people who were formidable and I was intimidated, but I knew that they knew a better way and I asked for help from them. And so that you don't have to go talk to people who are formidable and intimidating, I wrote it all down in the dating course. So if you could, Rob, maybe grab the link to the dating course and just pop that in there. Anybody, if you hear me talk about courses and you want to go look at them, they're at courses.crappychildhoodfairy.com and you can see them. The only thing I want to say is today, though, we have this big sale. If you go there and sign up for membership, you'll get charged full price, $499. If you want that $152 off, then use the special link that Rob is providing, the 30% off. It's also the link right now and tomorrow. It's the top line of the description section under all my videos. We kind of plopped it in there. So you can get that. This is a really good time to come in. If you come in now, you'll be part of a cohort of new people, and we'll be nurturing you. We have new member orientation calls, kind of teaching the culture, how to hang out on Facebook. We have all these new people in the Facebook group, and it was a little bumpy yesterday because not everybody kind of knew. We have like some guidelines. We're like, never talk about politics and don't tell other people what to do. And everybody stays focused on this program. They can mention that they have studied other things, but they don't push it or teach other things. So it's a pretty structured place, which keeps it from being triggering, frankly. But it can feel limiting. And sometimes people go, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. And I'm really glad they post anyway, even though they're a little bit worried about it. But I'm also glad people are being thoughtful about what to post there, because I don't know about you, but I'm like done with going to online forums where people chat and comment and and just say mean things. Oh my gosh. That is I think our community here on YouTube and then also in our member group, it's extraordinary. It's so kind and above average in that way. And obviously, people get Cptsd. And people with Cptsd lash out sometimes, or we have trouble reading social signals. So it's not like everybody's perfect, but we help with that. Everybody's kind of learned. We're all getting socialized by being part of this group. It was about 14 months ago, I started the 8-week coaching intensive. And I started it because individual coaching that I was doing at the time, which I'm not really doing now, I'm too booked out. But I was doing individual coaching and I thought I want there to be a less expensive option for people. And so I developed this 8-week coaching intensive. Now, members get group coaching with me every 2 weeks, but that's a pretty big group. The 8-week coaching intensive is 10 people. It's small. And But what I've learned from that is like people learn the best when they're in relationship to other people. There are certain things about your CPTSD that you can heal all by yourself in isolation. And wouldn't it be so nice if you could just heal it all in isolation and then one day pop out of your house, all put together, looking smashing, acting normal. Everybody would want to be your friend, but it doesn't work like that. We learn by staying connected to people and learn by building connections even when we're not healed yet and practicing. And the techniques that we're doing over there are helping do better with it as we go, and also to cope with the horrible embarrassment and shame when we completely screw it up, so that doesn't stop us. I've lived so much of my life like with my foot in my mouth. I just screw it up all the time, but that I know what to do. I know what to do so that it doesn't stop me, right? So it'd be so nice for everybody to have that. I caught out of my eye just a second ago. I'm going to come back to more of the questions, but I just saw one go by that just said, "Am I going to deal with chronic illness?" I am someday. I'm actually, I'm talking. I had a bunch of stuff that all that surgical stuff. It didn't heal from the surgery, but then it did heal. It healed when I healed more of my trauma, and that's a lot what brought me into this field, is learning how me being all traumatized, I was just not in the best position to recover, even like, tissue that had been stitched together. I couldn't do it. And there's so much I want to say about that, but I think I'm going to partner with a physician for it. And so I'm actually meeting, I sometimes talk to physicians who are really into this, and physicians who have CPTSD themselves, right? Who get it. So I'm looking forward to that. I have a meeting with somebody this week. All right. So here I come back. Let's see. Okay. Whole Miss says, "I'm 38. I'm realizing my brain is wired differently from CPTSD, covert avoidance." I think I made up that word. It's such a good word, right? I want to start more focused regulation of myself. I struggle with actually doing. Where to start? Thank you. All right. So Whole Miss, I'm guessing you're not in my program. So there's just no way to say this without sounding like a salesperson. But when people are always like, Anna, what can I do?" I'm like, I just made all these courses. Like my whole life is dedicated to putting this knowledge in courses. So come over, check them out. Start with the free one if that's where you want to start. It's a good place to start and see if my approach is a fit for you, if you vibe with it. The YouTube videos, of course, you get a sneak preview of where I'm coming from, where I'm going with all of this. But I teach really specific stuff about, I have a whole course. It's a 30-day thing called Connection Boot Camp. It's like a day-by-day program where you just start teaching yourself to connect with people. Like a lot of us already had kind of a little issue with that. Then came lockdown. Love it or hate it. So a lot of the CPTSD people were like, yay, I get to stay inside and nobody's going to bat an eye. And now we have to come out slightly. Very interesting for people like us, right? And so learning how to connect with people, I recommend a process, and it's structured into this boot camp. It's pushing your limits like just this much every day, not so much, because you know what happens with CPTSD when you like, I get really triggered by this, and it's like, oh, go do it anyway. Then you just get all triggered. You lose 3 days of productivity, and you go, I'm never going to do that again. So you don't want to do that. So you just a little bit, a tolerable amount. In medicine, they call it titration. You do a little bit and see how it goes. Come back, check in, take a rest, meditate. Okay, that went pretty good. But when you are going through your recovery and you're doing worksheets with me or videos with me, and you're talking to somebody else about it and going, I was doing this exercise, and when we hit this one question, I really hated it. I didn't think it was relevant, or I really loved it. I melted into tears. When you're talking to other people like this about how you're experiencing life, you're healing. And when you're doing that with people who also have CPTSD and have gone to the trouble to learn about it and work on themselves, you're with you've really narrowed it down to a really great group of people. I'm not saying every person you meet here is going to be great or perfect, but you're going to, it's like night and day to be around people who have CPTSD, who know what it is and who are working on it. So yeah, our brains are wired a little differently. We're finding out that there are overlapping symptoms. It's not the same thing as autism, but a couple things there with the emotional intelligence, and when you get triggered, kind of like getting emotionally dysregulated, perhaps. There's things like that there. But also, we're wired differently because neglect changes your brain development. And the good news is you can heal so much of that. You can actually heal some of that. That's what these techniques are for. They're to help you just keep healing and keep healing. And it's been my experience and a lot of people's experience that while we never are some perfect version of ourselves, whatever that might have been, if this had never happened, that's so hypothetical, right? I still have Cptsd and I still get dysregulated. It still comes out sometimes, but I make tremendous progress in terms of being able to stay regulated, being able to pursue things that are hard. I mean, let me tell you, putting videos about my life on YouTube, not only is it like hard work, but it's hard when people get on there and say mean things to me. And old me would have completely quit after one mean comment. And new me connects with people who are supportive and, you know, gets my fears and resentments on paper through these techniques. And I carry on. I carry on because I've developed enough of my sense of purpose and identity that I just feel like I think it would be better for me to keep teaching what I can to anybody who wants to hear it. And anyway, YouTube is voluntary, right? Kind of want to say it to people. Look, you don't have to be here, you know. so 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 getting back to your question, it's to struggle with actually doing. So that's why in these techniques we talk about the, knowing what you need to do and then having the power to do what you want to do. And I always talk about brushing your teeth. Like, how many people know you should brush your teeth twice a day? Everybody. How many people do brush their teeth twice a day? Not everybody, not all the time. And that's the difference between knowing and having the power to do. And so I'm getting ready to do a series of videos about energy regulation. I feel like nothing has been said about this, and I've been sort of learning it and cracking it now for several years, and really had challenges with it over the summer. I just had my energy just bottom out. I'm not sure exactly why, but I got really tired, and I would have to sleep every afternoon, and it was so frustrating. Like, that doesn't fit with my life at all. And I've gotten through it now through just trying a lot of things, but there's just main things going on with that, with food and get it. Okay, let me just say something more specific about that. I've discovered that I have a kind of dysregulation, and I don't think it's uncommon, but I've never heard it talked about. That's like time dysregulation, where I get dysregulated and it's really unclear to me how much time is passing. And and sometimes it's like a super immediate phenomenon where, it's like, oh, look at the time. But sometimes uh, it means sleep hours are off, and energy, when my energy comes up like it should in the morning, it's like off, it's mistimed. And so I've been developing all these techniques and approaches to getting your energy regulated. So just having energy helps. But sometimes I also think like not wanting to do things is, and what avoidance is. Why are we avoiding it? There's a couple of reasons. Mainly because not avoiding it, like facing life and doing the work, is hard. It's just hard. I want to be excused. I don't want to have these demands placed on me. And that's, it's just not necessary for me to protect that. It's just part of my human nature. I think everybody has a little of it. And I don't want to use CPTSD as an excuse to set a low standard for myself. Part of it also, I think, is resentment. It's a weird kind of like revenge against whatever, to just sort of go, I'm going to hang back here. I'm not really going to give myself to this. I'm going to bring something cheap to the potluck that everybody else brought something nice that they made, that sort of thing. Just, I don't want to have to, I shouldn't have to. A sense of entitlement almost. And so that's part of it. And then part of it is just pure dysregulation of just not. I used to have nightmares. I've probably had this dream 200 times, and it finally stopped, and then I had it again the other day. But I would have a nightmare that I was at a hotel. I used to do a lot of business travel for the job I used to have. I was at a hotel, and I would go, oh, you know what? I have to get catch a plane, and then I'd forget that I had to catch a plane, and I'd go get in the swimming pool, and then I go, oh no, I have to catch the plane, and now I don't know where my stuff is, and I'd go try to find my suitcase, and my shoes weren't there, and I go, I think they're down by the pool. I'd run down to the pool, and the dream would just be this chaos of not being able to find all my stuff. And you know what it is? You know what I know that is now? It's a dysregulation dream. It's a dysregulation dream. And I dreamed it again and again, and it was just this terrible panic. So now I use my techniques, among them, daily practice, getting the right amount of sleep, which is, easier said than done sometimes. I limit how much input can come. I can't talk. I can't have conversations or listen to spoken words before I've written and meditated in the morning. I get too overwhelmed. I know things like that. and start preventing dysregulation from getting its hooks in me during the day, and then I have the power to do. Now, I use Pomodoros and Kanban boards. If you don't know what those are, Rob, maybe you could put kanbanflow.com in the chat for me. Kanbanflow.com. There's many Kanban applications, but I just use Kanban Flow. It's free, and it's these columns, and you can write yourself tasks, and I color code them, and I just keep track of what I'm supposed to do in a day. I never get to it all, but at least I look at it again and again during the day and go, where am I? What have I done? What do I need to do? Oh, geez, I need to do that. So in my case, I've really stepped up how much I do, because I do Crappy Childhood Fairy. And, this grew 5-fold in the last year. So I work a lot. I'm trying to figure stuff out. I'm hiring people. I'm creating videos. I'm making courses. We're dealing with technical issues, having conversations with this physician, talking to you. So, I'm busier than I've ever been, and it gives me joy. But in order to sort of keep track of everything I need to do, I use a Kanban board. So I do that. And then a Pomodoro, it's a term for a chunk of time that you set for yourself with a timer. You turn off notifications. You know who sucks your energy? You know who makes it hard to do? This little bastard. Okay. This thing. Gosh. How often are you looking at it and checking notifications? So I'm really working on that too. It's hard, if your job exists on the internet, like mine, like most of yours. It's hard not to be checking stuff all the time, but then right away your focus goes right out. So some of us have been diagnosed with ADHD. Some of us probably have it. Some of us might have been misdiagnosed, and we have garden variety Cptsd, where we can't focus very well. And everybody who struggles with focus would do well to use common techniques and tools out there to limit how many times you take all your attention and put it on your phone or any other kind of notification. So I turn that off. That's my latest thing, is limiting how much I have a conversation. It's really hard for me to make a video on the same day that I have conversations. I make the video, then I have conversations. But it's like this input of words. It changes me. It changes me. So I'm putting a lot of stuff out there for you. I'm going to be making more content about this. I think this needs to be a course. You know what I really want to do? You can give me your feedback about it. I want to do a course for other entrepreneurs. I think that working for yourself is a fantastic job for a person with Cptsd, because it lets you stay with your natural rhythm throughout the day. And if you're dysregulated on one day, but you're supercharged the next, you can work with that. And also just the problem of group dynamics and cliques and power structures being such a drag for people like us who get triggered by it. With clients, I just think it's fantastic. It's so much better. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking. A course for entrepreneurs. And also, just having built an online business like this, people ask me all the time, how do you do that? And how do you get started on YouTube? And it's so fun to watch people get started on that. There's some yeses. The money, yeah, we're awful with finances, but we don't have to be. We don't have to be awful with finances. Somebody just said, who was it who said, but we're awful with, awful pot draining. Who said the finances thing? Elisa Hayden. Yeah. So I think that brings to mind a problem that we have around, and I'm going to be talking about this in January, capacity versus doing. And I think a lot of us run out there and start doing, right? You go, oh my gosh, I haven't done enough. Go out, do. And I'm a big fan of doing. And I scoff at that saying, be a human being, not a human doing. I'm just like, what do you have, a trust fund or something? I have to do things or I'll starve. My family has to eat. We work at this business. And so I've never really gone for that statement. So doing is good, but that capacity building, and I'm not the first person to say this. I can think of some really well-known books that talk about like sharpening the saw, deepening the well. But for PTSD, building capacity so that you can deal with stuff. Like for me, crappy childhood fairy, dealing with the tactical things of, online platforms and customers and all that, that's like this hard for me. But dealing with how it feels to be me and being able to visualize having this be more successful than I ever thought, that's the hard part for me. That's the part that's likely to give me this unconscious covert avoidance. I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like this is going really well. I think I better go lie down. And actually, it's going really well means, okay, go sit down at the desk. Go work on this. Get some help if you need to. All of this stuff, like who was taught this at home? Not me. When the going got tough, people would either drink or have an argument. So I'm learning a new way. All right, I'm going to go take another question here. Linda Carroll says, can you talk about the overlap between autism and CPTSD? My therapist and I have discovered that I'm neurodiverse, but due to trauma. Thank you. Okay, very interesting. So I would really recommend anybody who is on the spectrum or thinks they might be, or loves somebody who might be on the spectrum, is to go check out. I just did a video with him, I don't know, 6 weeks ago. Autism Explained, and his name is Paul Micallef. He's in Australia, and he's brilliant. And he has Asperger's, and he does work that's very parallel to mine. Like he has it, and he teaches about it. He talks about what it's like, and he consults to teachers and organizations and people who have autism and people who love people with autism, and parents, and helps people understand this is what it is, this is what it isn't. So one thing is that he emphasizes is autism is not caused by trauma. It's not caused by trauma. Trauma could make it harder to cope with autism, but autism it's a way that somebody is made, and he tells us that very emphatically. And so for him, he feels frustrated when people are always like, maybe if you just learn to meditate or something. He feels insulted. He's like, look, I have this thing. I've always had it. And he teaches emotional intelligence coaching for people, coaching in courses. And I'm like, geez, that would be really handy for us, emotional intelligence. And that's actually a lot of my videos are teaching that too, of, what is going on with people. And so I notice we have very common symptoms, and Paul agrees, we have common symptoms. Difficulty reading social cues sometimes, feeling like other people know how to interact. Like I always talk about when I used to go to parent events at my kids' school, and the moms would talk, and then it turned out they all hung out over the weekend, and I would just be like, what are they doing, and why aren't we friends, and am I weird, or they just have a way of like being women together, and I just I never got the memo on how you're supposed to fit in with the moms at school. So I would get really triggered by it. Then I get really defensive. Then I wouldn't want to go do parent things. It was just really self-limiting. And then I came to accept, hey, you know what? I'm wired a little differently than the majority of other parents out there. And that doesn't mean I can't participate in things. And that's kind of Paul's philosophy too. So I'm no expert on autism. I just have noticed and got it validated with him that a lot of our symptoms are in common, but they're not totally the same. So ours is an injury. CPTSD is really basically a neurological injury. Autism is a form of neurodiversity. So hopefully that makes sense. They got born with red hair. We dyed our hair red. No, that's not really a good metaphor, but I wish I had a good one. Okay. And all right. Winnie Lasser says, all you say hits home so hard, but I don't have a diagnosis. Do I really need a diagnosis? No, you do not. I'm so not concerned with diagnosis. I read a study a couple years ago that when you limit it to, professional clinicians, on the whole, the way they diagnose people is so different from person to person. from practitioner to practitioner, that it's quasi meaningless. And there are a couple of things that are, they're measurable things, but CPTSD is something that for them is very subjective. When it comes to how to treat it, their ideas about how to treat it are so diverse that sort of meaningless turns into totally meaningless. And that was the article I read, and it was published in a major journal. It's not terribly important with CPTSD that you are diagnosed, except that in some cases it would activate you being able to get insurance coverage for whatever you were going to do. So I won't say it's meaningless, but there's no consistent pattern yet. This is not very well understood. Now, that said, there are incredibly brilliant practitioners out there. And if they think you have it, that could be meaningful. But if you've been diagnosed and you question it, go ahead and question it. Question it. Always remain sovereign to yourself. You be in charge of what your condition is and what you're going to do about it, and consult with doctors and therapists about it. Consult with them, but never give over your common sense to people, because it is a little bit subjective. The other thing is, here in Crappy Childhood Fairy, we're always sort of discouraging too much focus on what happened and focusing instead on what symptoms are you having right now. So when you take my quizzes, you can take all my quizzes on the free tools page of my website. And maybe Rob could put the free tools page in there for you. I have quizzes about 4 different ways that trauma might have affected you. And you can take that. But what it is, it's not a diagnostic tool. Some people are like, well, do I have it or not? And I'm like, oh, I can't tell you that. A, I'm not a clinician. And B, it's just a PDF. But what it is it's a list of common symptoms, and you can check them yourself and go, do I have these symptoms? And if you do, there are things you can do about many of them, if not most of them. There are things you can do. So let's say you have 10 symptoms that are really holding you back, and 2 of them you know what to do. You have ideas what would help them, and 8 of them you have no idea what would help them. Start with the 2. You might be surprised at what becomes clear and easy for you when those 2 have been helped. So for a lot of us, that would be staying regulated, becoming aware when we're getting dysregulated. That would be a really good foundational thing. Another one would be, if you're in the dating phase of life, going very slowly in dating and not sleeping with anybody for a much longer time than you think, until you really know them, so that you don't end up, like so many of us have, emotionally attached to somebody that you don't even like, that you've seen the red flags, you wish you could leave, but now you can't because your abandonment melange is imprisoning you with the threat of total collapse. You wouldn't even be able to go to work if you broke up a relationship, even though you don't like the person, right? Have you had this happen? So we go slowly. Those are like 2 things that are changeable. If anybody has like a substance abuse thing, alcohol, drugs, those are so inhibiting to any other kind of healing that I would recommend, like, yeah, take that first. Take that first. If you're willing, that would be the number one thing you can do. If you have other addictions that people can tend to maintain a job with, like a food addiction or a video game addiction, I don't know, that one's pretty bad too. Anything addictive, that would be a really good first line thing that you can change. And then there's other stuff you can't change, like the condition of the world or how your parents actually are. By the way, if you're waiting for your parents to acknowledge what they did, I also encourage you, like, hold that lightly. Most people never do. You can heal whether they do or don't. You can take your focus off of that one. There is nobody outside of you who has to do something for you to heal. If you're in an abusive or oppressive situation, the first order of business is to get out of that situation. And that's not easy either, because of money, because of abandonment melange, because they might come after you. But that would be the first line thing to do. And so all this other stuff about, well, what are you going to do about, all these other parts of your CPTSD? You'll find out when you don't have that one major, like, elephant sitting on your head of addiction or being in an abusive situation, right? Or being in a terrible, terrible relationship where you're crying every day. All right. So for those of you, if you just joined this call, I wanted to tell you we have this end of year sale. I guess it's the beginning of this year sale right now. Rob, if you would put that link down in the chat. This sometimes when I give you a coupon code today, it's a link. It goes straight to this reduced price. You get a year of membership for $357 US. No, $347 US, which is $152 off the normal price. If you click on this link and go to the page, I even show you the conversion rates for pounds sterling, euros, Canadian dollars, and Australian dollars. And for everybody else and for anybody, run a conversion before you do it to make sure you agree with the price and your own currency. And before you buy, the Stripe or PayPal will show it to you in your currency so you know what it is. But that's US dollars. It's the best deal that we ever have. And it'd be great to have you come be a member. You get to come into all my courses. You get to be on twice monthly group coaching calls with me. And you are invited to be in a secret Facebook group with other people who do my courses where they're working and talking to each other and supporting each other. There's daily practice calls over there. And so you have, it's interesting. There's probably twice as many people. Of all the people who take the courses, maybe half come in and do the Facebook group. And of all the people who come into the Facebook group, only a fraction are vocal there. A lot of people feel shy or they just don't want to deal with people. That part's up to you, but it's a good deal to be able to access all the courses alone. And the calls, I think, I personally enjoy them tremendously. Big, powerful things happen in those calls. So it'd be lovely to have you there. I am going to take a couple more questions right now. I know we're over time, but here we go. Existential detective, I like your handle, is the compulsion to compensate every act of received kindness and feel discomfort if unable to. Is it Cptsd related? It could be. It sounds a little, I don't know, we could label it. If you're not at ease with your interactions with other people, if the give and take of life is a mystery to you, you're in the right place here. Okay, you're in the right place. And that's what we do. We learn and practice with each other. When you have somebody, when people do the daily practice and when they come into this community, we encourage people to get a buddy within the communities. That's somebody else who uses the daily practice, and you can read to each other what you wrote sometimes. And nobody gives you advice. They just, they go, yeah, thank you for sharing that. But it's great. You can ask for advice. And you can ask things, and that comes up all the time. It's like, is it just me? Do I owe this person a thank you? Did I thank them too much? Do you think that was embarrassing? And you can get a second opinion, or you can throw it up on the Facebook group and say, what would you guys do? And you can get 10 answers, and you can pick the 2 that you like. Take what you like and leave the rest, right? So that the confusion about, is it just me? Did I do something wrong? That is a Cptsd thing, but we're not the only ones. And all right, I'm going to take another question from Darios Ergevna. Sometimes I hear from some coaches like Mel Robbins. We have blonde hair, we have glasses. She's so successful too. I love her, which I really like. And she says you should look forward instead of looking back, but then you kind of skip your trauma. What do you think about it? So that's okay. That is the cool question here. I won't speak for Mel Robbins, but I'll tell you what I have to say about that. It's not that you can never look back. The past is going to come and bite you in the butt often anyway. It's going to come. And I think everybody needs a chance to talk about what happened. And sometimes they're going to need some time to talk about it, get a little feedback, let it breathe a little bit, let it see what happened and get insight about it. I think being in a group of other people who are traumatized is great for just by osmosis, just learning, okay, I'm not weird. I have a normal set of symptoms that a normal person gets when they grow up in an abnormal set of circumstances. So that's really good. But my radical proposition and why I'm here being Crappy Childhood Fairy, why therapy didn't work for me. I know it works for a lot of people. And I just am in love with the great therapists out there. But the reason it couldn't work for me is because talking about my trauma is too dysregulating. I get so dysregulating, I can't process information. I get very upset, makes me feel worse than before. I can process my trauma, and I do it using writing. And that's what the daily practice is. It's a way to write any distressing thought you have. But you only do it as it comes up. So instead of going, I will now list the 20 worst things that ever happened to me when I was a kid, I just sit down and I write. I will now write my fearful and resentful thoughts about, and it's a specific technique. Again, I just go learn the technique. You can learn it quickly, but it's specific. And if you don't use the technique, this isn't going to make you feel better. But you write down what the troubling thought is. And so any given time I sit down, the troubling thought is going to be a mishmash of just dumb stuff like, oh, my tea got cold. And fear when I take a sip, you can hear me going, you know, that's literally what crosses my mind. But also floating around in there is uh, stuff that seems more significant. So, you know, some fear about the world, or fear what somebody thinks about me, or fear I have some terrible health problem, but I don't know it yet. You know, just imaginary things, worries, dread, and then resentment at people. You know, I'm resentful. Somebody gave me a hard time today about something in an email, and I had to be nice. And I'm resentful at that person because I have fear I couldn't say what I really thought, and fear I have to be nice, and fear if I'm nice, it'll give me cancer, and fear, just blah, blah, blah. I just have hamsters in my mind. So you write down whatever it is. And that's really different than sitting down and listing all the worst things that ever happened. And I think what happened to a lot of us is, in going to traditional method things that you do about being traumatized, where you go immediately zero in on, so what happened when you were a kid? And it's not that that's irrelevant, but I just found that talking about it did not get me to the solution. It was part of the solution, but it didn't get me to the solution. And what's gotten me to the solution is to be facing all the symptoms and signs that come up and start working on those and chipping away. Like, I can't tell you what's happened to my self-esteem as a result of being able to control my temper. I used to just go off on people at the grocery store. I regret that so much. And having done something I feel ashamed of would throw me into days of dysregulation. So things like that happen less often and less easily. And when I'm feeling that way, I have better self-regulation around it. And I also can stay focused, and I can get things done. And that not only improves my self-esteem, but improves my income. Now I can be productive. And then because I can pay attention to other people better and not be completely absorbed in trying to cope and always like, how am I doing? And I get to have a husband, like a really cool guy. And I will just say that if you've struggled in relationships, keep hope alive, because as you heal from your Cptsd, you can have a better relationship. And to be in a relationship where you're genuinely cared for, like they told you, like, oh, a relationship won't fix you. And it's true. You mostly it's an inside job healing your Cptsd, but having someone to love you, that instinct you have that craves that, it's a good instinct. It's very healing to have somebody who loves you and to love somebody else and to get a chance to learn and practice being a loving and considerate person. And every time that you grow a little bit in that direction, you'll feel better about yourself. You'll love yourself more. So instead of like saying, oh, when I'm all healed, I'll go try something different or go on a date, like it's all going to happen sort of in little bits, a little here, a little there. But you got to be brave, and you need a way to get comfort and relief from all the panic and remorse and things that come up for a person with complex PTSD, from interacting with people at all, or getting rejected, or saying something stupid at a party. How are you going to deal with that? So that's what I'm teaching with the daily practice, and why I'm always like driving it home. I wish I could see your faces. I hope you're chuckling and going, yes, it's just that way. The remorse. Why did I say that? So, all right, with that, I'm going to let this call go. We're a little bit over time. It's so great to spend some time with you. There's 546 people on this call. Thank you so much for showing up and being here. And think about coming and being a member. If you would put that link in one more time, Rob, that would be great. The membership is where I actually talk to people on Zoom, and we have conversations. Oh, also, if you would put it again, Rob, the 8-week coaching intensive. We just filled one. It got completely booked yesterday, 10 people. We opened a second one. It's on Sundays at 8:30 a.m., 90 minutes for 8 weeks, beginning January 15th. And you get one-on-one coaching with Kara. You get this group. You get a year of membership comes with that. If you're already a member, you get a discount. If you're thinking that you want to do something serious, and it costs bucks to do this, it's a deeper thing with more group time involved. A Slack group, that's like a little private email universe with your cohort. homework and videos that I created that take you through 8 weeks, an 8-week cycle of healing some trauma. It's not a good fit for somebody who's in crisis right now. It's not a good fit if you're looking for techniques that I don't teach, like somatic stuff or, talk therapy. This is where we do the fairy techniques. We learn about triggers, dysregulation, disconnection from people, self-defeating behaviors, the pessimism that tends to keep us from believing that it's even possible to heal, starting to change our identity from a person who's all traumatized to a person who is going to have many impacts on the world. And finally, in the 8th week, to really start to discover our gifts, the thing we really came into this world to bring, and the thing that we need to be doing to be happy. And I know you know that. I know everybody gets that feeling like, my life is passing me by. I'm really supposed to be doing something better than this. And I'm here to validate, yes, you are. You're meant to be doing something better. And healing your trauma is how you set yourself free to do that. And this is a program that helps support you for an 8-week cycle through that. And I recommend it highly. And if you haven't met Kara, you've probably seen her. Kara, Team Fairy, she answers some of the YouTube comments because I'm not able to answer them all. And we work very closely together. She's used these techniques for 13 years. She's a very gifted coach. She's much nicer than me, just saying. So I recommend this for anybody who's thinking you want to do a deep dive. It's a 2-step process to get in. First, you apply. You send us a little bit of information about yourself, and we give you the details, what it costs. You can go get all that. And then you apply. And then if we think it might be a fit, we set up a short interview with you on Zoom. And it starts in 2 weeks. So, it's all happening pretty quick. So you would want to get in there, and it might fill up very quick as well. So if you're thinking, there it is, G11, Beth. Yeah, Beth, Saturdays, 8:30. Oh yeah, thank you. Saturdays, 8:30. The Sunday one is Sunday at 9:30. That's full. Thank you, Beth. Saturdays, 8:30 a.m. to 10 Pacific time. We just added this, so forgive me, I'm forgetting my facts a little screwy there. It's a good group of people, and it's not everybody. Yeah, not people who are in crisis. It's people who are fairly functional right now and are ready to take that step to connect better, heal their dysregulation, and go further. But it's limited, so you got to apply. Just putting that out there. All right. Thank you, Beth. All right. That's it for today. Thank you for being here. I'll be here again in a month or so, and we'll announce it when it's on the schedule. And I hope I see you really soon. I'm going to go make some more videos for the week. Hey, and if you want to, I should do a poll. I did a poll a couple weeks ago about topics, and people said, we want dysregulation and procrastination. And so right away, I made a video for that. It says, don't let mean people wreck your focus. That's what it was. And it was really popular. So if you haven't seen that video, go check it out. The limerence videos are going through the roof right now. People are just loving it. And not everybody has limerence, and some people have that sort of resolved for now. But I always love to hear from you about the topics you want. And if you want to send a letter and have it answered, I can't take them all, but here's what I'm looking for. These are the letters that tend to get answered. It's not too long. It's not an email that goes like this, because we just can't. It just wouldn't be a good video. A little bit about your background is fine. But the specific thing going on, be specific and pose it as a question, like that I can help you with. How can I help you? And, things that are of common interest to the fairy community. No explicit sex or violence, please. I would never do that on YouTube. And send your letters in. People are always asking, and it's hello@crappychildhoodfairy.com. That's where you can reach out to us. Thank you. Letter videos are cool too. I know there's a couple people who write in and they're like, go back to the little short ones that are just about 10 bullet points. So generally I do one of those a week, and then I do 2 letters. That's kind of the routine right now. Someday I'll try to do more. Thank you, everybody. I love you. Thank you so much for being kind and supportive, and go give each other some love. This community and the kind things you say to each other are amazing. And if you catch somebody on my channel being mean, call them out. Just say, hey, don't be mean to this person, especially the letter writers. Those letter writers, they are real people, dear men and women who have been courageous enough to send a letter for everybody's benefit. So when you see a letter read, go ahead and give them some praise, give them a word. They're working on it. And it just breaks my heart when people go, "Oh, they're obviously a narcissist." Well, they're obviously not if they allowed everybody to criticize them on YouTube. So So give everybody some love, and remember, people with CPTSD are struggling more than you think sometimes, and can use the kind word and the pat on the back. All right. See you soon. Happy New Year, everybody. Bye.